Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Betterhumanology podcast. This week we have Dutch Lowy. He is the owner and head coach of BlackBox Strength and Conditioning. He has a lot of experience in the Olympic weightlifting world as well as the entrepreneurship and developing human being world. And so listen to this if you want to get a little bit better at the snatch and clean and jerk, but also if you want to learn about how books on children and their development can also translate into building great coaches and better humans. So without any further ado, here is Dutch. All right, Dutch, welcome to the Betterhumanology podcast, man. I'm pumped to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jared. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to dive right into it with some challenges and a book recommendation, if you don't mind. We're going to start with a fitness challenge for everybody listening.
So I appreciate the opportunity to think about this in advance because
yeah,
on the spot, you usually come up with the dumbest things you can think of. But so my best fitness challenge, I got basically two segments of it. So in order for me to create a fitness challenge, it has to be something that can be broad. Anybody can do it. It shouldn't be skill based. It shouldn't be something that, limits people based on the amount of skill they have, which for me means it needs to be mindless and hard and very easily measurable. So what I came up with was a body weight sled push, and there's got to be two components to it, right? Number one would be a distance without stopping. So how far can you push your body weight on a sled without stopping? And then number two, how far can you push it over the course of a certain period of time, right? So 12 minutes seems like a good amount of time. How far can you push your body weight on a sled for 12 minutes?
Yeah, both of those sound pretty brutal.
They do, but you think about it, they're pretty indicative of a current fitness level, and they're easily measurable, and they can scale based on what's going on. And
that's very true. I think dependent, obviously the more advanced athlete is going to take that one to a whole new level and make it a lot worse, right? So yeah, that one's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then the sled is pretty unique in terms of how it taxes the body. It's not like doing squats or pull-ups or any other exercise that incorporates eccentric contraction. It's something that is only concentric, and it doesn't put that deload on your muscles and yada, yada, yada. It doesn't make you as sore as squatting or doing other stuff, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. And it also makes fewer excuses from your athletes the next day if you want to do some more sled pushing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so how about a mental toughness challenge?
Oh, oh man. There's so many ways you can go with that, and I actually don't have anything specifically listed. When I think of that, I think, obviously physical challenges can be mentally taxing and create some mental toughness. Then there's environmental things that can create mental toughness, sitting in a cold tub or, a polar bear challenge, sitting in heat, sauna, that kind of stuff. I just don't have anything good for you. I actually put the question to one of my coaches who is a sports psychology student and very strong on the mental toughness side and coaches people in that. So we'll see what she comes back with, and I'll give you a better answer.
Yeah, if that comes up, let me know. And before this is published, I'll put it in the show notes for everybody to read if your coach comes up with that would be very interesting. And yeah, there are a lot of different things, physical events, like you said, environmental. Have you ever done any sort of environmental stuff that's pushed you mentally?
I don't like cold, so I stay away from it. The sauna has been something that I've really used a lot. We actually own one at the gym, and then I try to get 2 or 3 sauna sessions in a week, just for general health, the way I feel, the way my body feels when I do it. It just helps me feel better. So I don't know if that's considered a mental toughness challenge, but it's definitely something that I've seen a big benefit from.
Awesome, man. All right, how about a book recommendation? Either something you liked currently that you read, or maybe a book that's had a big impact on you.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit interesting in it. You gotta read it, and you gotta kind of put the connection together in terms of how it relates to things outside of parenting. But it's called Parenting with Love and Logic. And like I said, that's a little bit silly to be a business or a personal development book. However, I think that when you learn how to communicate with children, you learn how to communicate with people, right? So what this book teaches you is two things: how to communicate with kids, right? How to talk to them in a way that shows them respect, allows them to make decisions, and then live with consequences. But it also shows you how to communicate with people, right? As a coach, and I don't know who your listeners are specifically, but if they're working with people on a daily basis, they need to be able to know how to communicate with people effectively and how to get people to do what they're asking them to do, right? Mm-hmm. Inside and outside of the gym. And this book really gives good insight into the psychology of how people make decisions and, what consequences they have for their actions and how they deal with those consequences, et cetera. So, number one is how to communicate with people. And then number two is helping people make decisions on their own, right?
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, the more I think about this book and the more I look at it, the more I read it, God, it reflects onto everything that we do and everything that we, deal with people in.
And I'll definitely check it out. Do you have kids?
I've got three.
3 kids. What are their ages?
9 months, 3 years, and 5 years.
Awesome. So I have a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, and one on the way, one due in April.
Nice. Made one mistake, my friend.
One too many.
The same thing. I gotta admit.
That's awesome. All right, yeah, but I definitely want to check out this book, especially coming from you. I think this would be great, and how it applies across. It's funny how books can do that sometimes. I read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, which is a phenomenal book. But when people ask me about it, to me, it's like the best parenting book I've ever read. And there is a little bit of stuff in there about parenting, but it's just the book overall, that I feel like just as a father has really helped shape how I'm kind of raising my kid to give him that growth mindset and, always be focused on what they can get better as opposed to thinking that it's just they're stuck in their ways and all that other stuff. And so, yeah, it's funny how these books can, just translate to so many different areas of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my athletes hate that I read this book, and they'll come to me and ask me about things or come up with questions or problems. And, they now know what the process of that discussion is going to be. Well, what do you how do you feel about that? Oh, you're sore. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you think caused that? So getting people to think for themselves is really powerful. And it starts as kids. And I think that, everybody can learn that at some point, whether they learn it earlier or whether they learn it later is kind of up to parents and environment.
Awesome. Yeah, that one's just, I'm going to move to the top of my list right now. The children have different challenges as they get older. I find you always have to be making yourself better if you want to keep guiding them down the right path.
Yeah.
All right, man. So let's we got the challenges and the recommendation. I really appreciate that. If you could give a quick introduction and some of your background for everyone listening, so they can kind of get caught up to what you're doing now and kind of how you got there.
So I don't know how far back you want me to go. I have been in sports my whole life. Played soccer through high school and into college. Played soccer in college for 2 years at a D1 level, and then ended up transferring out. I was in North Carolina, where you are now, and transferred back to Texas. Quit playing soccer, and kind of got into this rut of like, what do I do now? And just, drifted into fitness and activity. And that's typically what what my life consisted of. I was always active, always doing stuff. So it fit. Anyway, got into fitness and was working out, and then was, more and more interested in it. So I, started to try to go after it in school, and then, actually took a meandering way through college in terms of the time that I spent in versus out of college. Took me a while to get done with it. However, during that process, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the future and, and with work and all that fun stuff for later. So, took a year off and got a job as a personal trainer. And kind of the result of that was that I knew that wasn't the life that I wanted to live and the career path that I wanted to take. And so after coming back, I actually grew up in the same town that I ended up getting my degree from in College Station, Texas, at Texas A&M, and ended up getting back there. And people that knew me knew I'd been gone being a personal trainer, and came back and they said, "Hey, I want to work with you. I've got some goals that I want to work towards, blah, blah, blah." And, I found that working on my own terms, not being in a gym, not being, under somebody else's management was really powerful for me. And it really worked in terms of how I wanted to function. And that's kind of how my business started to grow. And then, you get the CrossFit connection and you grow into that. You spend a couple years doing that. I ended up maturing out of that into Olympic weightlifting and being competitive in that and coaching that. And then, so competed in that all the way up through 2015 and where I had my last national competition. And now I'm a old retired weightlifter and coach and run a business and try to make money doing other stuff as well.
Awesome, man. And you said that you're just kind of catching us up more today. You said your main role in your business today is kind of developing your coaches and mentoring them and helping them become better coaches, I think is what you actually said when we were first chatting before the podcast. Is how much of what does your day look like in doing that?
So easier to look at it on a weekly basis. Weekly, I meet with every one of my coaches for anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes per week. We've got a weekly team meeting where we sit down and talk about stuff that's coming up in the week or the month or, upcoming in the year and how we're going to plan for that. I've got an assistant that works in the gym and kind of takes care of all the background stuff there. So I meet with her most days. Typically I'm in the gym from about 3 to 6, without any real responsibility. So I could be there. I don't have to be there. I feel like my role right now is to be kind of the face isn't necessarily the right word, but be the soul of the gym, be there, get, talking to people, get people excited about being there and help coaches grow and develop what they're doing. I find that meeting with my coaches regularly really helps create and grow our, the soul of the gym, right? It helps build and develop what we're doing. By being in contact with them, I'm essentially in contact with all the members and I get to find out what they're up to and what they're doing. We've got a little bit of a different model than maybe what people see in typical CrossFit gyms or group fitness type stuff where everybody in the gym has a coach. They may be in a group fitness setting, but they're going to meet with their coach at least once a month in a one-on-one session to go over goals, talk about what they're working on, talk about nutrition or lifestyle or work on some exercise related stuff. Just kind of depends on the person, but we call that our hybrid membership. And that really has been powerful in terms of developing people and keeping them posted and working towards their goals.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I see happening more and more is just, I guess if I had to categorize it, it's just gym owners, box owners, if you wanted to call it, just being great leaders, and not, I'm not saying that's happening everywhere. I'm saying that's where the best gyms are being developed is you've taken this stance on, you want to be a really solid leader for your team and that's going to help develop your business. I really feel like that's I guess the future of that model, is going to be won by strong leadership, not, opening 15 locations as fast as you can. And, so I think you've taken a really solid approach. How did you kind of transition to that role? Because I know probably when you started, it was a lot of, and I don't know, but I mean, probably a lot of coaching classes and trying to juggle, just the day to day while developing a team. What was the transition like?
Yeah, so it's taken, I guess I started a gym in late 2005, 2006, for the first time. So it's been 12 years now that I've had a gym in some capacity. And for the majority of that time, I was the one that was responsible for all the work, and that's fine. And really, like in this business, you can make money in one of two ways. One is working a lot, and two is having like super high volume programs that, just proliferate, right? You got 4 or 5 different locations, or you have 15 or 20 different coaches that are working for you with a full load. And we don't have that. So, it makes it tough to monetize what we do. But going forward, if I'm not able to develop a coach and create what I know in them, then, me as a business owner, I'm going to end up just having a job. Right.
Right.
And for me, I want to have a project, or I want to have something that I can grow and develop and that'll live on and that other people can benefit from. And that's kind of been my main purpose lately, is to develop coaches, develop them in a way that allows the gym to benefit, allows them to benefit, to pursue the lifestyle and the living that they want, and pursue their passion, basically. I had the opportunity and the privilege to do it, and I'd like for them to have that same opportunity. I would like to provide them a more favorable opportunity than I had in terms of, financial benefit. It's tough doing it on your own, and it's tough owning your own thing. And anybody that does that or has done that, they know it.
And you said you started kind of originally dabbling in personal training, but you quickly realized that that's not something you wanted to do. What was it that made you not want to live that lifestyle?
I didn't like the setting that I was in. The people were great, but I didn't like, at the gym that I was at, it was you could book personal training on an hourly basis or on a 30-minute basis, half-hour basis. The people that booked it on a half-hour basis did really well financially, and that's great. However, you're constantly chasing people around trying to get them to fill those spots. You never have enough time with the right people to get done what you need to get done. And then, it becomes a very strict business model, and I just didn't like the way that felt, right? I wanted to be able to connect, develop, and actually like get some work done with the people that I was working with. So I never was good at that model. And I came out of it feeling like, management took advantage of everything we did. We never got a say in what was happening in the gym, and just didn't fit well with the way that I wanted to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've heard that story from a lot of people who kind of been in that rat race, if you will. Is like I forgot who was it I interviewed, and they talked about basically making an absurd amount of money as a personal trainer, but they were just like working god awful hours, like 7 days a week, and just like never stopped, and it just didn't end up working out for them. And I can understand why. Yeah, I mean that's the deal. You either work a lot and make a lot of money, or you don't work a lot and you don't make a lot of money. Right. Yeah, there's nothing to continue when you're not around or actively with a client or athlete. All right. So one thing I wanted to ask is kind of juggling all of that you were juggling, but you were also competing in Olympic weightlifting. How are you managing to do that?
I can give you the very simple answer. I neglected most responsibilities. So because of the gym lifestyle and because of what I had created, I had the freedom and the flexibility to basically raise our kids at home to a point where they needed to be in school and start to develop, where now 2 of them are in school. And then I've got a third one that I'm with most of the day. So, I had 2 things basically that I had committed to. Number 1 was raising children, and number 2 was, being a competitive athlete. It was in my bones. It was in my soul. It's something that I had to do. And so I kind of would split time. There's videos of me back in 2012 or 13 with, lifting weights where until I lift the weight off the ground, you can't see the baby in the background that's, on the other side of the platform behind the weights. And that now to me is really funny, but I kind of had to realize that like I did that at the expense of being able to grow my business and develop, other things related to that. In the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to grow the business and develop people and, kind of create a team that I can trust and can do everything that I was trying to do by myself. At the same time, they're able to develop themselves and grow as athletes and as people and as professionals. And I think that's really rewarding lately for me.
And so let's talk about Olympic weightlifting. So you said it was kind of CrossFit that got you into that scene. So where did CrossFit come onto the scene for you? And then why did you decide to kind of go? And I've seen this happen with a lot of people. They kind of fall in love with one aspect of what kind of CrossFit can introduce them to. So where did CrossFit come onto the scene, and then why weightlifting?
I think CrossFit was 2005, and I got introduced to it by a guy named Jeremy Teal down in Austin, who's still running the gym down there. Really good at what he does, very excitable, really good at growing a business and getting people fired up and leading a team. And I think he's been, he was my first introduction to it. And at the time it was me and him under a bridge at Town Lake with a kettlebell and 4 or 5 people walking by looking at us like we were, right. And at that time, it's kind of funny. I was probably a couple months from moving back home and finishing up school. And he said, "Hey, you should stay here and we should do this full time. And, in the 3 or 4 years it'll take you to finish school, we're going to have a business that's worth, $1 million a year." And I looked at him like he was the craziest person in the world. And okay, Jeremy, all right, thanks, have fun. And I left and, looked back at him 2 or 3 years later, and he's done it. Right. So anyway, he's got the dedication and the passion for it. And I love what he's doing down there. I took a different path. I ended up finishing school, starting a gym while I was in school and running it through there. In that middle ground time, I guess it was between 2007, 2009, got really into CrossFit. There were so many aspects of it that were really new to me in terms of how to develop my body personally and, my capacity and what I could learn. And this is like, you guys can't understand it now, but this is before there were tons of videos on YouTube. As it comes to, developing and learning, there weren't a whole lot of resources around, right? Whether they were online or even people in different locations that we could travel to. At the time, I didn't. My Ursula Garza, Bob Andrea, my weightlifting coach, who I met in 2009, was in Austin, and I had no idea, right? She's one of the best weightlifting coaches in the world, even. And she's just hiding out in Austin. Nobody knew about it. And so anyway, at a time when we were very hungry for education and learning, there weren't the resources that people have now, right? We couldn't get online and buy a course. We couldn't go, look at videos. We had basically CrossFit.com, who was exposing us to all this different stuff. And at that time, I think they had a really good flow of information, and they were really good at exposing people to different new ideas, and allowed you to kind of develop and learn what you wanted to from that. So, and that was between about 2006 and 2009, late 2008, early 2009, I think that's about when I kind of was joined up with CrossFit.com and got to start teaching a lot of their courses and traveling a lot and get exposed to all these people and all these different gyms and how people are doing stuff. And, really could put together a responsible idea about what fitness can and should look like, what a business can look like, how to develop these capacities and how to develop the understanding of how to do the stuff that I wanted to be able to do. and just picked up a passion for lifting weights. It was something very much like a golf swing that you're never going to perfect, but when you do it right, man, it feels good. And so, had kind of a journey through there and ended up working with Coach Mike Bergner on his certification staff at one of those events in Fort Worth, which is where my girlfriend lived at the time. I met Ursula, who I basically said, I was working with Greg Everett at the time as my coach, who was in California. And I met Ursula and I said, "Wait, you live in Austin? You're going to coach me." And she was like, "Okay, whatever." And so then basically started, sending me a program, and I'd be in contact with her periodically sending her videos, and then getting down there to see her. At the time, she was training in the garage, and I kept telling her, "Hey, Ursula, weightlifting is something you can charge money for, and you should." Previous to that, like, you didn't make money in weightlifting. It was something you did because you liked it and you liked the people you were working with. So as a business idea to her, it was totally foreign, and she was like, "Get out of town. Nobody's ever going to make money doing this. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing." Fast forward 5 years, 6 years, she's now putting on clinics and, has programs and a gym full of people that rely on her for coaching. Anyway, I guess that's not really a story, but so that's kind of how I transitioned into weightlifting, right? Did my first national competition in December of 2009, about 4 or 5 months after competing in my last CrossFit Games in 2009, which at that time, like between qualifying in May and competing in June or July, whenever it was, the fire was gone, right? CrossFit was over for me. And all I wanted to do between that time and the games was train weightlifting. And that's pretty much what I did. And I think I suffered in my performance because of that. But I just didn't care, right? I didn't want to do it. And it committed to the weightlifting thing. So, since 2009, I kind of just dug in. In 2009, I think I finished in the bottom 3 or 4 in my weight class. And that was a real big kick in the pants, right? Like, you just don't know how bad you are until you go up against these people that have been doing it for 5 or 10 years. So anyway, just put my head down and trained in my garage, and eventually ended up owning a gym and training in the gym and coaching people. And I would say that it paid off years later. 2015, I ended up in 3rd place on the podium with 2 guys who are current or should be future Olympians in the sport. So, it took me 8 years to develop into somebody who could compete at that level in a sport that is incredibly complex and very hard.
And you bring that up, and you mentioned training in your garage. This is one question I have to ask for some of my listeners, because a lot of people listening to this do work out or train in their garage. A lot of them enjoy, weightlifting and other functional fitness. But say if you had to give them some advice on learning the lifts, this is a question I get all the time, and I'm just gonna leave it open, because they're my suggestions. There's everyone's suggestions, right? But I would love to hear, because you're so experienced in the sport, specifically if someone, and I'm saying they don't have a lot of experience in doing this stuff, but they bought some weights in their garage. What would you recommend they do?
I've told people this over and over. Having a coach is probably your number one priority. It doesn't mean you have to see them every day. It doesn't mean you have to be, in their gym every day. You got to have somebody that you trust, and that, you guys are on the same page with what your goals are. And then just having a very deep responsibility and dedication to perfecting the basics. Because really all this sport is the basics, right? If you can create good positions, and get stronger every day or every week or every month, and have that end goal in mind, then you're going to do great. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. You look at people who are competitive on a regional scale in terms of weightlifting these days that want to be competitive on a national scale. I mean, you're looking at 5, 6, 8 year development terms because of the maturity of the sport these days. And I think that there's still a long ways to go. You have to have the patience and the dedication, and just every workout matters, but every workout doesn't define who you are. Right. Right.
Like, don't get too wrapped around the axle if you have a bad day or something.
Right. I tell people this all the time. If every day was a good day, you'd be in the Olympics.
Right. And one thing I found pretty interesting, and I want to talk about your journey a little bit more, mindset in weightlifting, because of what you just said, like a golf swing. There could just be a day where you're just not having it, right? Like, I remember to nowhere to the extent that you've trained, but I was training with a coach up in Maryland, and that's where I learned a lot of Olympic lifting. And there was one day I came in the gym, and we were doing just some basic snatch work, and I was just off that day. And he just looked at me. He's like, "Go do something else." And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, you're not doing this today. He's like, I don't care what you do, but you're not lifting today. I was just like off mentally or something. It's just something wasn't right. And so I want to talk about that since it is such a skilled technical movement. Like, how does mindset play into being a weightlifter?
It's huge. And I think it translates into just about any athletic endeavor you can imagine. I don't know if you've listened to Lance Armstrong's podcast at all.
No, I haven't.
It's actually pretty good, and I'm a Lance Armstrong fan, despite what he's done or hasn't done. Who knows? But I think when he talks to people that perform at a high level in other sports, he talked to Bodie Miller the other day, and it was really interesting to me. And I think that people like him, and I wouldn't compare myself at that level at all, except for mentally or emotionally. I think you just have to be a little bit dumb, right? You have to not analyze things so much that you can't perform the movement, right? And I think the snatch and the clean and jerk and squatting and pulling and all the accessory stuff are very similar in that regard. You have to be dumb enough to just do the work, right? Not think about it, not worry about it. Trust who's asking you to do it, or the program that you're on, or the path that you're taking. Just do the work every day, right? Try to develop, try to be better, obviously, in every session. But if you approach the bar and you've got so many things running through your head that you can't even lift the thing off the ground, like, you're in trouble. This sport, can be enjoyed by everybody, but the people that are going to perform at a top level are going to be, for lack of a better term, the dumbest people, right?
Yeah, people can kind of shut it down.
Just don't have a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
You be over analytical, and it's fun. I mentioned Lance Armstrong because he talks about the way people train these days, and they've got these power meters and they've got these heart rate monitors, and they won't do things that take them out of their comfort zone if they can't sustain it, or if it's too early, or if they can't make a run and win. Whereas he would say, look, I just went by feel. If I would look back and see guys that are dogging it behind me and they're struggling, I'm going to go. And we've all seen those videos of him just tearing up a mountain and everybody's behind him going, fuck, I can't catch up. Right. So I think that's powerful. He just goes by feel. I think a lot of athletes that you'll talk to do the same thing. In terms of training, I think it's very similar, right? You got to know when you can push, take advantage of days you feel good. And then on days you don't feel good, or, like you said, you just don't have it together. It's the way it goes.
Yeah. And I think, I had a really good friend, and that was almost the same advice he gave me. It's been like 7 years ago now. He's a really competitive Ironman triathlete, and I would train with him to do some endurance stuff just to try and balance myself out a little bit, and I just couldn't get to his level. Of course, I just wasn't there physically, but I just couldn't get to his mental level when we would be doing interval miles or something. And I just asked him, I'm like, dude, I understand what we're doing physically, but like, what are you doing in your brain? He's like, nothing really. I'm just, just not really thinking about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's probably your strongest quality, and you might not even know it. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah. So, anyway, the sport as a whole is a very cerebral activity. And if you let that get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish, you're just going to crash and burn and fail miserably. That doesn't mean, if you're that type of person, you can't be successful. And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the sport. It just means you've got to learn how to control it. And that's kind of why I mentioned this. I guess I mentioned it before we got on the call, but this girl that works at the gym, Mona, who I've been coaching for 8 years now, started coaching her in 2010. She's a internationally competitive weightlifter from South Africa. She's also a sports psychology student and has her master's. I think she wants to get her PhD in it. But she, as somebody who is very self-actualized and understands what it takes mentally and emotionally to accomplish something, she's still very analytical, right? She still knows that these things are important to her and how she's going to approach things. But she's also able to overcome, the little mental challenges that she struggles with and how to deal with that. So I wouldn't put her in the same category as me at all in terms of how she trains or how she competes. She's very cerebral and very understanding of what she's going through. But she's got some very good strategies personally on how to overcome that, and really good at kind of, putting all the pieces together to perform really well.
Now I want to transition a little bit to kind of, I guess, education or learning, because, I'm sure that there was a point in time where you were, attending seminars, certifications, all that good stuff. And now, as we've kind of mentioned, you've transitioned more to being the owner and developing your coaches. What have you... how has your learning had to transition? Because I know you're not as concerned about a certification, in the fitness industry. You're more concerned about things that you can learn to help grow your business and help grow your coaches. So what have you transitioned there from a learning standpoint?
So, in terms of my role, I think that it's part of my responsibility to gather people and resources that can benefit my coaches in the best way possible, right? So inviting people that I think have really good messages and can help them understand what it is we do and why we do it. Going outside to outside experts to get them to teach us what they do and why it's valuable and how it can benefit us. We recently sent a coach down to Austin for a, what are they called? The, not the kettlebells, but the little bat-looking things.
The mace or the... Wait,
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
They look like juggling sticks.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's escaping me at the moment.
Yeah, anyway, so we sent her down there to learn from a guy who travels around the country and puts on clinics. We couldn't find a clinic. We didn't want to spend the money. It was actually cheaper for us to pay hourly to have her there for half a day, learn from this guy and bring it back to us, than it was to bring him in or send her to a clinic. And that's like, I think that's something that people overlook. I've traveled to several independent gyms as well and taught there for 1 or 2 days in the same scenario, right? It's way cheaper to bring me in somewhere where you've got 6 or 8 coaches than it is to send all 6 coaches to another location, right?
Right.
So, that's something that I look into. That's something that we try to source. My coach is actually coming up to Fort Worth, to our gym BlackBox in the end of February, I think 23rd and 24th, to put on a what she calls the Art of Coaching Weightlifting, which I think is a fantastic event. So just trying to source the right education for them. And then, we also have the added benefit to be able to sit down with them every time they learn something new and let them teach it to us. Right. So there's a segment in our weekly meeting when they have to teach us something, even if it's just 10 minutes about what they've been learning about and what they've been reading about.
I think that's really cool.
That opens everybody's mind up and help, 10 minutes of listening isn't learning, but it gives us that avenue to go and like either talk more with them or go explore more of what they're talking about, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, that is. And just you mentioned the name, and I forgot I haven't asked yet. So why BlackBox?
A couple reasons, I guess. The official reason, you think about a scientific idea, and BlackBox is one of those things or a black box is something that is used in the scientific community where you know what an input is, you know what an output is, but you don't really know necessarily what happens in the middle, right? And they call that the black box. So if you know what the input is and you know that there's a favorable outcome in terms of what actually happens, like how is food digested and how does it interact with the muscles and the cells and the organs and the blah, 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 does that matter if you're getting a favorable outcome? A little bit if you really care about it, but for your clients, not really, right? So we think of like, people coming in to our gym as the black box and then they come out, right? They're the input. The output is hopefully a favorable outcome for what they want, right? The name black box, I think, was originally associated with what we put together in 2010? Called the Black Box Summit, which was had a lot of potential, and I think it had really good information in it in terms of a clinic or a seminar, but came out as a PR disaster. Many various reasons, but if you want to look into that, use Google.
Oh man, wait, maybe I know about this already, but it's been a while since I've looked it up. But no, I gotcha. Awesome, dude. So I think that's really cool.
It'll be a good a good opportunity for people to dig in and look at what the OGs and CrossFit were doing. Really, some big names were at this event, and
Was Castro there?
Castro showed up.
Yeah, I think I remember this. You're just now jogging my memory. I forgot about this, to be honest, until you.
but Greg Everett, Rob Wolf, Nikki Violetti, James Fitzgerald, Jeremy Teal, his sister Carrie Kepler. Like, we were all at this event to present, and at the time, it was kind of we brought together people in the community that we thought were going to be the biggest contributors. Mm-hmm. It ended up being people that splintered off and did their own thing because of what happened at this event, partially. But anyway, the masterminds and the people that were there at this event were just phenomenal. And you look at what they're doing these days, and it'll blow you away. It's really incredible.
Yeah, those are a lot of heavy hitters you mentioned just there. That's pretty cool, man. And so you never tried to dust that off and pick it back up?
I hadn't. Maybe it's something that we do like as a 10-year reunion. But what's happened since then is everybody's kind of identified their own brand, right? Rob Wolf has written books. He's the paleo nutrition guy, which he kind of always has been. Greg Everett's living off in the woods, writing stuff about weightlifting and coaching his team. James Fitzgerald has literally an entire education system school set up that is developing, all these new, really cool things in terms of coaches and business systems and helping people be professional at what we do. And then who else? Jeremy. I mean, he just owns the Austin market for CrossFit basically.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, really interesting stuff that people are doing, and could be an opportunity to get everybody back together again at some point. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely, be there if,
awesome.
If you do it again, I'll be there. That's the bottom line.
At 2.0, we'll see.
Yeah.
See what shows up. That could be the interesting part.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, I want to get to these quick-fire questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So what's the hardest workout you've ever done?
So okay. So in 2009-ish, I was traveling a lot, got to work out with a lot of cool people, hang out with a lot of cool folks. I was doing it couldn't have been 2009, must have been 2008, because I was still doing CrossFit pretty religiously. But ended up in Park City. I actually worked at and ran Chris Beeler's gym for a week or two while he went on vacation. It was kind of a buddy thing. And when he got back, we did this workout, and he, he lives at 6,000 feet. Park City is 6,000 feet. Really just not something, unless you're accustomed to it, that you can get used to. And, if you do a workout that makes you breathe hard, you're going to be in a bind. And so we did Jackie, which, 8 or 10 minute workout, not super complicated. I can't even remember exactly what it is. I think there's definitely a row. There's some thrusters with a barbell and some pull-ups.
Yeah.
And all I can remember is the aftermath is like laying on the floor, propped up on the wall, and just not feeling good. Right. Just, the way I felt probably was reflected in the way I looked. And Chris, like 3 times came up to me and was like, "Hey man, you doing okay? What's going on?" Man, I don't know. I'm not recovering very well after this one. I don't feel so good. And after the 3rd time, he comes over and he brings a bucket and he puts it down next to me. He goes, "Hey man, you're really not looking so good. Just brought this over for you in case you need it." I never ended up using the bucket. However, that one sticks out in my mind as one of the worst.
So elevated Jackie. Yeah, that sounds like it's brutal.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Have children.
I love that answer. We've only had one other guest say that, but I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I got a couple reasons. Number one, it's one of the most selfish things you can do, right? To think that you need to procreate and bring in people to the world, that you can do it better than other folks. But it results in you being as selfless as you possibly can, right? Because you've got these other people that you have have to take care of and are responsible for. So yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster. Some people get good kids and some people don't. And if you don't, then you've got to work a lot harder, and it's stressful, man. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, builds a lot of resiliency.
Yeah.
All right. If you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I think a barbell, probably.
Yeah, I think given your background, you could do a lot of stuff with that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. So here's the question of the show. What's the best advice you have for becoming a better human? And this is 100% open-ended.
To be a better human. I think, and I'll transition into something else with it, but learn how to listen, right? Listen to folks and hear what they're saying. And those are two different things, right? When you're listening, you're not necessarily hearing. When you're hearing stuff, you're not necessarily listening. So listen to people and hear what they say. And I think that can help you develop into somebody who can be compassionate and can help other people with your words. It also helps you be a little bit more thoughtful with how you communicate with folks and, what you're actually projecting on folks. Along with that, and this is totally not related to being a better human, but it is related to being better at most other things you might do professionally, is learn how to do sales. There's some very defined steps in terms of how to sell things, and I think that works whether you're selling cars or selling boats or trying to get people to complete or begin a fitness journey. I think it's all the same, right? And if you can sell people, then I think that you can be successful in whatever you're trying to do.
And I think that's great advice, especially for anyone out there listening who may be starting off, because I've talked to a lot of younger coaches, maybe just getting started, and that like sales and marketing is like bad words to them, and like that's where I have to stop them right away. It's like, do you believe in everyone's selling something, and if you're a personal trainer trying to get clients or a coach trying to get clients or athletes, you have a product, it might or a service. If you don't believe in it and you're not willing to sell it, then why the hell would the person you want to do it, why would they want to do that to you? And it really comes off if you're like super timid. And have you? I want to talk about this just for a second because I think that's amazing advice. Have you had to learn any of that the hard way? Because there's definitely the used cars salesman approach, right? That people. That's why sales has like a negative connotation sometimes. And then there's a little bit gentler side to almost not really selling yourself at all. That can't really work. So where have you found or struck a balance there?
So I find that having a goal when you're talking to somebody is really important, right? What do you want to get out of that conversation? What do you like? Is your goal to sell them a membership? Is your goal to sell them fit? Whatever it is you're selling, and there's really not a wrong answer, so long as you have a goal in terms of what you're trying to sell. Or accomplish in a conversation, really. Like, you're not always trying to sell something. You might be talking to somebody who's trying to lose weight and they're saying, I'm really having trouble losing weight. I don't know what to do. And you're trying to sell them on what your answer is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one piece of the sales puzzle, right? Knowing what your favorable end result is. Another piece is being able to listen to what they say and then be able to tailor your answer to what they want, right? Mm-hmm. Because the car salesman thing is if somebody comes in talking about a van, I really need a van. I got 4 kids. I'm having trouble getting in and out of the car. I need whatever, right? I need a van. And you're saying, okay, I hear you, but we've got this great sedan over here that I want to take a look at. And they're going, I need a van. I've got 4 kids. Mm-hmm. So just making sure that you listen to what they say, not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole kind of thing, right? Because in gyms, we tend to have 1 offering or 2 offerings or whatever. And if we don't listen to what people say, then we don't fit them into the right program. And then if they're not in the right program, they're not going to thrive and they're not going to last, right?
Right.
So I think those 2 things are really important when it comes to sales. We're not super high pressure. We don't do a whole lot of objection handling when it comes to people like saying, oh, well, I don't know if I can do this, price, blah, blah, blah. we'll come back a little bit and push them in terms of, just kind of reconfirming what their goals are and how committed they are to the process and what they want to accomplish. But if the answer is no, the answer is no. We're not going to alienate them and have them not come back in 6 months when they're ready.
Right. I like that, man. Well, I've had a blast over this last hour talking to you. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure other people might want to check out, your gym or learn more about what you're doing. So what's the best place for people to learn about all you have going on?
Yeah. So our gym is called BlackBox. Website is blackboxfw.com. I think we're definitely on Facebook, and maybe you can find us there. I'm not sure. I think it's Facebook.com/blackboxfw. Surely we're on Twitter and Instagram and
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll definitely link to all that. Dutch, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.